Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a fascinating stack of sources you've shared, and today we're really going deep on a platform called 8agora.
Yeah, it's right in that spatial computing space. Things are moving so fast, they're promising to connect our digital and physical worlds.
Totally. Things that felt like pure sci-fi just a short while ago.
Exactly.
So looking at these sources, our mission today seems clear. We need to figure out what makes 8agora tick, what makes it different.
And how it's aiming to change virtual experiences across a whole range of sectors. We're talking consumer, enterprise, even heavy industry.
Right. And the big hook, the thing that keeps coming up in these materials, seems to be accessibility.
It really is. They're pushing this idea that complex, immersive virtual worlds shouldn't require, like, a supercomputer.
Yeah, the sources say access from any device with just standard internet, no powerful hardware needed, no big downloads.
And that piece, the accessibility, that really jumped out at me too. It flips the script, doesn't it?
It does. You don't need the high-end gaming rig or the latest VR headset just to get in the door. Universal access. That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, so let's start with the basics then. According to these sources, what is 8agora fundamentally?
They define it as a cutting-edge cloud streaming spatial computing platform.
Okay, spatial computing, dealing with digital stuff in 3D space, interacting maybe with the real world, or just existing in that 3D context.
And the cloud streaming part is key. That's the delivery mechanism.
That's the engine, exactly. The sources say its purpose is to genuinely transform how businesses and people interact in these virtual spaces.
And it does this using what specific technologies?
Well, they mentioned a few core things. Advanced GPU optimization, getting the most out of graphics processors, AI features, quite a few of those, and crucially, really efficient data compression.
Got it. So taking all that demanding graphics work, all the computation, moving it off your phone or laptop.
And handling it super efficiently in the cloud, using optimized GPUs and AI smarts.
Yeah. Now, something the sources really hammer home is that 8agora is built for business. That feels like a big differentiator.
It does. They're very clear. This isn't primarily positioned as like a social metaverse hangout or just a gaming world.
It's enterprise first in its DNA.
That's the message, yeah. Business first, enterprise grade from the start.
And how it's different for business seems tied right back to that tech stack, the cloud streaming.
Absolutely. Think about how high-end 3D stuff usually works. You download a massive file, right? Your computer does all the hard work, rendering, physics, everything.
Right, needs a powerful machine.
8agora flips that. It's entirely cloud-based. Nothing significant runs locally.
So for the user, the employee, the customer, no downloads, no need for that expensive graphics card or VR setup, not even super fast internet.
That's the core promise. That's what makes it viable for broad business use, they argue. Access from basically any device you already have.
Your phone, your tablet, a standard work laptop, even a smart TV.
Yep. Just using a normal web browser and a basic internet connection. That's the goal.
That kind of accessibility, no extra hardware, that really does sound like a potential game changer for rolling it out across a company.
It removes a huge barrier.
So the technical magic is really about shifting all the heavy lifting, all of it, off the user's device.
That's the essence.
Uh-huh.
It's all streamed from powerful GPU servers in the cloud. They handle the rendering, the complex interactions, the physics simulation.
Taking the burden completely away from your local machine.
Exactly.
Okay, let's dive a bit deeper into the tech then. How does that cloud architecture actually work? What are the nuts and bolts?
Well, like we said, it's hosted on these powerful GPU servers. They're the workhorses in the cloud, doing all the rendering and computation for the 3D space.
Right. And the sources mentioned something about decentralized infrastructure, customer control. What's that about?
Yeah, that's important for businesses.
Yeah.
It means customers actually own their digital assets, their environments.
Okay.
And they get to choose where to host them. It could be on their preferred cloud, like AWS or Azure, or even on their own servers on-premise.
So they're not locked into 8agora's cloud specifically. They keep control.
Exactly. Puts control over data and deployment squarely in their hands, which links to security, another point they stress.
Operating behind the customer's firewall.
Yes. It's designed to run securely inside the company's existing network setup. All the communication goes through a single, standard HTTPS port. That's vital for enterprise IT.
Makes sense. And what about scalability? If a business wants to add more users or expand their virtual world?
That's a big plus of the cloud-native approach. It scales easily. You can add users, roll out new features, make the environments bigger.
Without needing everyone to reinstall software or run updates?
Exactly. No recompiling, no pushing updates to devices. It can all be deployed instantly in real time from the cloud.
Which loops back nicely to that universal access point, any browser, any device. But how? If these are complex 3D worlds, surely the bandwidth must be huge.
That's where their streaming tech and compression come in. It's quite clever. The client and the streaming service are tightly integrated in the cloud. The GPUs are optimized to handle lots of users at once.
Yeah.
And what gets sent to your device isn't raw 3D data for your computer to struggle with.
It's what then?
It's a single, highly compressed, adaptive audio-video stream.
So it's sort of like watching a really, really responsive, interactive video feed. You're inside it.
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah. And they get that real-time interaction with surprisingly low bandwidth because of the compression.
The numbers and the sources on compression are pretty impressive.
They are. They claim they reduce the data traffic to less than 500 kilobits per second total,
Wow.
which allows it to work even on pretty modest internet connections. They mention average user bandwidth often around 300 kilobits per second and latency around 25 milliseconds.
And the key is nothing demanding is running on your actual device.
Right, which makes it accessible but also more energy efficient from the user's perspective. Your device isn't working nearly as hard.
Okay, so if we were to boil down the main benefits, the why choose 8agora points from these sources, what are they?
Well, based on this architecture, they highlight a few key things.
Go on.
First, definitely scalability. We just talked about that. Easy expansion, real-time updates.
Then energy efficiency, which is a growing concern, right? Doing the hard work in optimized data centers instead of millions of individual devices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Centralized, optimized cloud computation is inherently more efficient. They even mention suitability for green data centers.
And the big one we keep coming back to, universal access. Any browser-enabled device.
Correct. And finally, security. Running inside the customer security perimeter using standard secure protocols.
Right, that covers the core advantages. Now let's look at where this is actually being used. The use cases seem incredibly diverse.
They really are. The sources break it down into three main buckets: consumer metaverse, enterprise metaverse, and industrial metaverse.
Okay, starting with consumer, what kind of things are we talking about for individuals?
Think beyond just clicking add to cart. They describe immersive e-commerce, like virtual stores where you can walk around, pick up 3D products, really examine them.
And then link out to buy them easily.
Exactly. All from whatever device you're on, trying to capture some of that physical retail feeling, but online.
Makes sense. What else?
Social stuff, too. Virtual theaters, clubs, places for events, gatherings, also exhibitions, virtual showrooms fall into this category.
Okay. Now, moving to the enterprise metaverse. This feels like where that business-first focus really shows.
Definitely. This is about things like virtual corporate campuses. So building realistic online offices, meeting rooms, even labs.
Designed for collaboration, making remote teams feel more connected.
That's the idea. Enabling virtual meetings, training sessions, project work in a much more immersive way than just video calls.
Product demos, too.
Yeah, interactive 3D models of products you can explore together. They also list things like broadcasting, virtual classrooms, and even mental health applications here.
Okay, and the third one, industrial metaverse. This sounds like the most technically complex.
It really leverages digital twins. The sources talk about creating virtual replicas of real-world assets, factories, machines, equipment.
And in interacting with those digital twins lets you monitor the real thing.
Monitor in real time, yes, but also potentially control it, analyze its performance, all from the virtual environment.
So managing a factory floor from halfway across the world, or checking machine health remotely.
Exactly that. Remote monitoring, remote control, diagnostics. And a huge one is training and simulation.
Practicing dangerous or complex tasks safely.
Precisely. Operating virtual machinery, running through emergency procedures in a totally risk-free setting. They specifically call out manufacturing and Industry 4.0.
It's pretty wild that the same core tech underpins virtual shopping and controlling factory robots.
It shows the flexibility of the platform.
Okay, so we understand the environments. But what about the features inside those spaces? What makes the interaction work? It's not just about being there, right? It's about doing things.
Absolutely. And this is crucial for the business use cases. One really interesting feature is called virtual browser interaction.
What does that do?
It lets you pull a fully functional web browser into the 3D space. Think a live website, a YouTube video playing, an Office 365 document.
And everyone in the virtual space sees it and can interact with it live.
Instantly interactive for everyone. Yeah. Imagine a team working on a shared document or analyzing a web page together right there in the virtual meeting room.
That's powerful. What else?
They mentioned specific collaboration tools like interactive scrum boards and whiteboards. Multiple people can use them at the same time, and you can save the results.
And these tools aren't fixed in one place.
No, they describe them as pop-up tools you can access from anywhere within the virtual environment. Presenter screens, whiteboards, those scrum boards readily available.
What about connecting the physical and virtual? Hybrid work is a big deal.
They touch on that. Integrating with physical smartboards and interactive displays is mentioned, linking them to the virtual session.
And bringing live video in.
Yeah, augmented live streaming, embedding real-world video feeds into the virtual space. Maybe showing a physical event alongside a virtual one.
Let's go back to those digital twin features for the industrial side. They sounded quite advanced.
They're definitely key. The platform has a cloud-based API that connects directly to real-world sensors on machines or equipment.
Okay.
This lets it pull in live data for monitoring, but also potentially send commands back to control the physical asset through its digital twin.
Real-time monitoring and control. And AI gets involved here too, predictive maintenance.
Yes. The idea is the AI analyzes the incoming sensor data to spot patterns and predict potential failures before they happen. More proactive maintenance.
How do you actually move around in these spaces? Navigation?
Standard stuff is supported. Arrow keys, mouse, touch, game controllers.
Okay.
But they also highlight something pretty cool. AI-enabled facial navigation. Basically hands-free control just using your head movements.
Wow. And speaking of AI, it seems deeply integrated, especially with the avatars.
Very much so. The cloud AI handles making avatars feel more lifelike.
Yeah.
Subtle things like breathing, blinking, really accurate lip syncing based on your voice.
Do they react to what's happening?
They animate based on activity, yeah. Makes the interactions feel more present, less static.
What about gestures? Can avatars interact physically?
Yes, they mention things like using pointer tools, clapping, even handshakes. And that handshake can apparently be configured to exchange virtual contact info, which is neat.
Little details like that matter.
Right, and they track who's actively speaking, highlighting their avatar.
You mentioned facial navigation. Does AI also mirror facial expressions onto the avatar?
It does. AI-driven facial expression mirroring aims to make avatar interactions feel even more natural, working alongside the facial navigation.
Okay. AI-driven remote assistance sounds particularly useful, especially for complex industrial tasks or support.
Yeah, imagine a technician on site wearing glasses, maybe, connected to 8agora. An expert, potentially anywhere in the world, can see what they see.
And guide them.
Exactly. Provide audio and video guidance right there in their view, overlaid on the real world potentially, or within the virtual space. It leverages generative AI for some user assistance too. Super valuable for training and support, especially when network conditions might be tricky.
And it tackles language barriers.
Real-time translation and transcription for, they claim, over 200 languages, plus automatic meeting transcriptions.
What about actually creating content for these spaces or automating things within them?
They've got features for that too. There's a Gen AI tool mentioned for importing 3D models and textures directly.
Making it easier to bring in existing designs or assets.
That's the goal. Streamlining the process, they say it's a no-code, no-hassle import, which would be huge for manufacturing, architecture, design firms.
So you don't need deep 3D expertise just to get your models into the platform.
Hopefully not. That seems to be the aim of the AI tool. They also mention immersive video recording from the avatar's point of view.
Like recording a training session from the trainee's perspective?
Exactly. And Gen AI can then transcribe and summarize those recordings. Also, simple voice commands can trigger actions in the environment, turn on lights, play music, that sort of thing.
And underpinning the industrial side again is that API for sensor hardware integration?
Yes, it's fundamental. That's what connects the digital twins to the live machines, allowing data flow for monitoring, control, analysis across different systems, all managed from the virtual platform.
The sources also briefly touch on the team behind 8agora, their vision.
Yeah, described as a mix of leaders, creatives, tech people. And they emphasize values like accessibility, sustainability, and that enterprise-grade security we talked about.
There are quotes attributed to specific people. Lisa Orlandi on accessibility.
Right, focusing on breaking down barriers, making it universal regardless of location or device, democratizing access.
George Diak on scalability and security for corporations.
His point seems to be enabling businesses to grow their virtual presence easily while keeping everything secure and compliant.
And Michael Erlani talks about global collaboration.
Yeah, revolutionizing how people work together globally, using these interactive virtual spaces, potentially linked to real-world assets via those digital twins.
Okay, so if we pull this all together, how does 8agora really position itself, based on everything we've discussed from these sources?
It comes across as a really versatile, powerful platform aiming to redefine virtual engagement, but with a strong, clear focus on business needs across those consumer, enterprise, industrial sectors.
All built on that unique cloud architecture, scalable, secure, energy efficient.
And the whole point is delivering a seamless, immersive experience that's, above all, accessible, making these powerful virtual world practical and usable for solving real business problems without the usual hardware headaches or download hassles.
Right. So wrapping up this deep dive based on the sources you shared on 8agora, the big takeaway feels like it's very deliberate focus. It's not just another virtual world.
No, it's positioned as a secure, business-first engine.
Using cloud streaming and AI to make these really complex virtual environments usable from anywhere on pretty much any device.
Yeah, we've seen how that could apply to everything from virtual retail to monitoring and controlling a real factory.
And it's that underlying tech, that cloud streaming architecture, that enables its potential across such different areas: consumer, enterprise, industrial.
Precisely.
Which leaves us with a pretty big thought for you, the listener, to mull over. If these truly immersive, interactive virtual environments, the kind that used to need serious hardware or were stuck in niche labs, if they can now genuinely be accessed by anyone, anywhere, on devices they already own.
Just needing standard internet.
Does that fundamentally change the game for how we work together, how global events are run, how we train people, how we learn? What stands out to you as the single biggest implication of that kind of universal accessibility?